Stephen, I'm going to compare your swing to Grant Waite. He was a tour player during the 90s, considered by many to have one of the best swings in golf. I'm going to start at the impact position, the most important position, because everything the ball does is a response to impact. I've drawn a box from the center of your ankles to the top of your head, and you can see how you're hanging back on your back foot, and Grant's a little bit more forward. Grant has more weight on his left side than you do. So you do have more weight on your left side than your right, but Grant has probably 85 to 90% of his weight on his left side. That red line's passing right through the center of his belt buckle. And so that'll be one of the things that will help. Now, one of the contributing factors to this is your ball position. Because your ball position is further back in your stance than Grant, you're forced to hang back in order to be behind the ball with your eyes at impact. Grant does have his hands a little bit more forward, closer to his left thigh, and yours are closer to your right thigh. And a lot of that's because of ball position. This swing is at the beginning of the session and before we made some adjustments in your ball position. Now let's look at some of the positions prior to impact that will influence your impact position. Here we are at the beginning of the swing, the one position. Here you can see I've drawn a blue line from the ball back to your feet, and you can see that Grant does have his ball position much more forward in his stance. That blue arrow is clipping his heel, and yours is just barely left of center. And so this does create some issues regarding weight shift and the delivery of the club with the proper face angle path combination. You can also see when you look at the feet how Grant does flare his left foot out toward the target, and you're pretty squared off there. That's one of the things that you did to make a small adjustment, and it's now turned a little bit more. It's not as much as Grant, but it doesn't need to be if I want to work in increments. So just flaring that a little bit will help in the weight shift on the downswing. And you can certainly see with your head hanging back on your right foot how you do have a lot more spine tilt than Grant does. Grant has a little bit, but yours is quite a bit more. And a lot of that, again, is the ball position is kind of forcing your upper body to lean back more in order to feel like it's in the right position. Here we are in the three position. This is when the left arm is parallel to the ground, and you can see how you've really leaned to the right, really putting your chest on top of your back foot. One of the things I had mentioned that at impact, Grant has 85 to 90% of his weight on his front foot at impact. And this is not just Grant, this is the average PGA Tour player will have that much weight on their front foot at impact. And the more you move to the right in your backswing, the harder it is to get back to the front foot at impact. And so you've added a complexity to your golf swing that is going to make it very difficult for you to be consistent. What we'll be working on is developing a stable axis golf swing where you swing properly around your golf circle, but you do so in a way where your golf circle does not move, that it's stable. And that'll make you much more consistent without giving up any power, but you will pick up control and consistency. Here we are at the top of the backswing. Grant has maintained his weight on his left side. He's almost like a field goal kicker, planting that left leg and pressing the ground for power. And he will use that left side to brace him and push the ground for power. When you get to your forward position, the top of the backswing, your golf circle is not in position to hit the ball. So you're going to have to move your circle into position on the downswing, and Grant doesn't have to move his circle into the position. It's already in position. Here we are in the 5 position. This is when the left arm is parallel to the ground on the downswing. Both of you have a really good shaft position in relation to the left arm. You have a very strong power angle there. So that's very good. That's one of the reasons you do have a lot of power. You do create this power angle. One other thing I want to look at in the 5 position is the position of your right elbow. I've drawn a red arrow from the right shoulder through the right elbow. And you can see how Grant has his elbow tucked into his side, and yours is pulled away from the side. And so one of the things that is an indication of what we call kind of an over-the-top move is to let that right elbow come out. And so that is, again, I still think it's a contributing factor is ball position. If once you get that ball more to your left side and more comfortable with it, it'll be easier for you to keep that elbow tucked and not be forced to do an early release, which that ball position would require. You have to try to release your club face square to the ball quicker than Grant does. So you can't really afford to delay the unfolding of that arm or unhinging of the wrist. Now we're going to look at the swing from down the line. Your posture and Grant's are fairly similar. Grant does sit back a little bit more than you do, but I'm going to say right now that's more of an idiosyncrasy than a fundamental that I want to put at the top of the list here. So I'm going to leave that posture alone for right now. I may come back and address that at some other point. Here we are in the T3 position, target line view, left arm parallel to the ground. And I've drawn a red line down the shaft of the club. And Grant's position or shaft plane is basically pointing at the golf ball. And yours is a little bit above it. It's a slight indication of what we tend to call being a little bit laid off. I've drawn a black circle around your hands, and then I've also drawn a blue line from the shoulder to the elbow. And so Grant has his right elbow more in front of his chest at this point in the swing, and you've gone a little bit deeper, a little bit further behind you at this point in the backswing, and it is part of the contributing factor to the laid off position. The more your shaft gets away from the impact position, the more compensation moves it has to make during the backswing and downswing to get back to the correct position. So if you can keep that shaft close at close proximity to the correct line, you'll be making much fewer compensation moves. Here we are at the top of the backswing. Drawn a blue arrow from your hands through the right elbow, and you can see where Grant's right arm his elbow is basically pointing at his right hip, so he has that arm directly under the club. This allowed him to keep that club in position. The face of his club is parallel basically to his left arm. You've done a little bit of an overswing. That can be problematic in consistency. Some of the changes that we might address will cause that swing to shorten a little bit without having to actually think about shortening it. It'll just shorten automatically once we make some other adjustments. One of the things that I'm going to want to do is have you do some drills where you keep your right armpit closed and do swings. So you'll be doing some, and before we meet again, if you could start doing some practice drills, sticking a towel under your right armpit and hitting balls, that'll be very helpful. Here we are in the 5 position. This is when the left arm is parallel to the ground on the downswing. And I've drawn a shaft line with the blue arrow. And you can see how Grant is certainly much more on line with the golf ball. And you're very upright. And you're going to have to make a compensation move between this point and impact. This picture shows your shaft position a couple of frames further down in the downswing from the 5 position. So the first blue line was the 5 position. The second blue line is the shaft position a few moments after that. And you can see that you've had to kind of really alter your shaft line and make that compensation move to get on line with the ball. Grant, on the other hand, has moved his hands further down from his 5 position, but he doesn't have to make a lot of different adjustments or compensation moves. He's still pretty much right on playing like he started. So your little transition move forms a little bit more of a chaotic move. This picture shows you from the last position down to the golf ball, and I've shown the club head's pathway to the ball. And you can see how it had to go out and away from the shaft line, where Grant's is a much tighter, cleaner, more stable swing plane into the golf ball. We're now going to look at the backswing of Grant as he keeps his spine angle intact and his head position intact from beginning to impact. Now you keep your head in position in your backswing, but you're going to see you stand up a little bit and start lifting your spine a little bit on the downswing. You're in pretty good position there, but right about now you're going to start pulling up, and you're going to see your head get into a position and your spine change. So you're much taller, you're standing up during impact and not maintaining that same tilt in your spine. This is the position before and after we made the ball position change. On the right is the new ball position where it's off your left heel. And your posture and your setup looks so much more solid, so much more in the pro line. You're not overly tilting to your back foot. You look very stable. You've even flared that left foot slightly. Going forward, you really need to continue to work on this setup and this ball position and make that your new foundation. Practice that until you own it. That is going to play a major role in shaping the entire golf swing back to impact so that you arrive at a much more consistent and better position. Here we are in the 3 position, and you can see with the old ball position how you had to really sway and move to the right in order to feel like you were getting behind the golf ball. But with your new ball position, you already kind of start behind the ball, and so it takes away the subconscious feeling that you have to shift to the right. And so you're able to just have a pure coil. Your golf circle is now much more stable. You've really minimized any kind of movement. So you're not swaying to the right, you're just simply turning to the right. During this session, I did not film you down the line after we made the ball change. I would certainly want to do that, and we'll do that the next time, because I think some of the things I commented on regarding your swing movements when we looked at the down the line picture, I think those are going to be much better correct, much more correct once we see you do this swing with the new ball position. Going forward, I want you to work on this ball position and let the rest of your swing kind of be shaped around this new ball position. You don't need to have a lot of different swing thoughts. I commented on a lot of different things, but I think a lot of these things are going to slowly go away as you continue to work with this new ball position. Because a lot of those things were occurring because of the old ball position, the incorrect ball position. And once you remove the reason to do the wrong goes away. Now, with your new ball position, you are going to hit many good shots. You're going to hit some better shots. You also will hit bad shots. This isn't the only piece that we're going to work on. There's still other things that will sabotage you. And so I don't want you to get discouraged or impatient with the improvement. I think it's going to come extremely quickly with this ball position. But we can't go back to that old ball position. That's a given. This new ball position is the correct one for your best golf.